because she's everywhere.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate all of y'all coming out. Again, I'm Marisa Richmond. I'm with the Tennessee Transgender Political Coalition. We're a statewide advocacy group formed in 2003. Excuse me. We fight for equal rights for all LGBT people, but specifically to give a voice, a face to the trans community, because a lot of times transgender people have been overlooked. We want to make sure that our issues are front and center and that our perspective is front and center. We have two of our board members who are here in the audience today, our president, Sean Arroyo, and our Middle Tennessee coordinator, Kathy Albrecht. We're now looking, of course, at the budget, which has been out just a few days, as well as, of course, the Affordable Care Act. As Francie mentioned, Planned Parenthood she mentioned that they provide care for transgender people. Planned Parenthood is the largest single provider of health care for transgender people across this entire country, including in the state of Tennessee. So we're fighting for Planned Parenthood and to make sure that all Americans of all categories have that equal access to health care. The Affordable Care Act banned the use of pre-existing conditions, which was often used as a justification by many insurance companies to deny health care and access to insurance to transgender people. We don't want that to come back. And that's why we're fighting to keep the ACA and not to allow for the passage of the AHCA, or as I'm going to call it, Ryan doesn't care. But as we look ahead, not only to health care, but these other issues, we want to make sure that we are providing adequate funding for public education. We don't want vouchers at the federal or state level because those vouchers would often go to private schools that discriminate against LGBT families. We see that in Tennessee. We see that in Tennessee, and we don't want it to happen here or anywhere else in this country. And that's part of the reason why we were so vehemently opposed to the Betsy DeVos nomination, and we're disappointed that it went through. Of course, at the state level, we've been fighting a lot against legislation in the General Assembly. But one of the things that we've had going for us these past few years is the support of the federal government, and in particular, enforcement of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which bans all forms of sex discrimination, and the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission in the Macy versus Holder ruling ruled that Title VII and sex discrimination is inclusive of transgender people, and you cannot discriminate in the workplace. So we want to make sure that Congress will stand behind that. We have had our own bill in Congress called the Equality Act, which is about to be reintroduced, that would put that directly into law and not just rely on an EEOC ruling. Because while that was a 5-0 vote by EEOC, nonetheless, we don't have a solid, emphatic Supreme Court ruling. And again, EEOC is appointed by the president, and it's only a matter of time, depending on how long this administration lasts, before they start replacing those EEOC commissioners. So we're concerned about Title VII and, of course, Title IX of the Equal Opportunity in Education Act of 1968, which bans sex discrimination in all forms of education, not just higher education, where it gets most of the attention, especially now that we're into the women's basketball tournament, but it applies to all education at all levels. And that was one of the key elements that we used in fighting the bathroom harassment bill last year, and the threat of Title IX enforcement was added to the fiscal note last year. We had a more than $2 billion fiscal note on that bill, and $1 billion of that was Title IX only. And we don't want to lose that Title IX enforcement. The new administration has said that they do not intend to enforce it. They've rescinded the guidelines that were issued just last May by the Department of Justice and Department of Education. But we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that Title IX is there, if we have to continue going through the courts, which we will. Of course, we did have a Supreme Court case that was supposed to be heard on March 28th involving a young trans man from Virginia named Gavin Grimm. Of course, just about 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court basically negated that ruling and sent it back to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. And so Gavin, who's about to graduate, will not see justice while he's still a student. But we are hopeful that the Fourth Circuit will reaffirm its original ruling, and that this current punting by the Supreme Court will one day result in an emphatic positive ruling. We have a Congressional National Lobby Day coming up Friday, June 9th. We hope that you will come and join us in Washington, D.C. We will make every effort to get into Congressman DesJarlais' office and introduce him to constituents, specifically to talk about transgender issues. But if you can't afford to come with us to Washington, then let's get into his office here in Murfreesboro and all across the district. We want people to go to Lamar Alexander and Bob Corker's office that same day in Nashville. And if you live in any of the other congressional districts, talk to your congressman as well, and make sure that they hear from you about your concerns about transgender issues and the rights of transgender Tennesseans, and make sure they understand you do not accept their argument that this is a states' rights issue, because the Constitution of the United States in the 14th Amendment says no state shall no state shall deny any person equal protection of the laws. So the federal government doesn't just have the right to stand in, jump in. They are obligated to do so, and we have to hold their feet to the fire, and make sure that they do what the Constitution requires them to do. Thank you.